This is Halima. As a young girl, Halima had to live on the streets to survive. She's not aware of her age, but she believes that she is 17 years old. She was brought to the biggest brothel in Bangladesh, where she was forced to inject drugs as well as being sexually abused by clients of the brothel.
During the Second World War, a system was set up by the Japanese government where women all over Asia were forced into prostitution and sexual slavery to decrease crimes like public rape and the spread of sexual transfer diseases. Human trafficking is a modern form of slavery and simply means illegal movement of people, typically for the purposes of forced labor or sex slavery. 75% of the victims are women and 50% are children. Until today, 20 million in the world have been forced into prostitution and child labor. That is the population of Sweden, Finland, and Norway combined.
The majority of countries in Asia are suffering from poverty and a lack of education. Since most of the victims live in poverty, they get tricked with false promises of employment, but are then forced into prostitution. The only possible way to provide for themselves and their families is through sex slavery and child labor. However, this makes them an easy target for the traffickers. Around 80% of the population are suffering from these bad conditions and may be affected. Nature disaster is a huge factor for falling into the traffickers' hand. It affects the entire population due to the fact that women are the majority of victims because they are not provided with any shelter.
Trafficking is also common in countries where human trafficking has its origins. Once a woman or a child has been lured or kidnapped, their passports are taken so that they cannot legally leave the country. A woman or a child can then be sold, auctioned off, and exported to the neighbor country. It is estimated that 200,000 women and children are being trafficked annually from the Southeast Asian Gulf. All those victims combined are 1/3 of the global trafficking. The women exposed to trafficking live in stations. The conditions of these stations are horrible, with each woman detained in a small room. Because of this, many women die of disease. Victims are also exposed to physical harm. The stations may be surrounded by barbed wire, which makes it impossible to escape. A station may also be called a brothel, which is a place that engages in sex
Women that are
activity.
exposed to trafficking are often being threatened. However, that is also the main reason for not trying to escape. They fear that the traffickers may harm their families. The majority of women that have to prepare for the clients are obligated to have sex with the traffickers before. The number of clients in a day may reach up to 30 men due to the fact that the risk increases for having sexually transmitted diseases, HIV infections, or unwanted pregnancy. Various of victims have become addicted to alcohol because they are forced to drink with the clients and can't define order. The victims cannot define any order for that matter. However, the victims are in possession of drugs that may be used for the purpose to reduce the pain, anxiety, or depression. About 9% of the women and girls between the age 15 to 35 consume drugs in the Bangladesh's brothels.
One of the leading countries in trafficking is Bangladesh. The Latia is one of the biggest brothels in Bangladesh, as well as in the world. There are around 1,500 sex workers. Since it has increased so much, it has developed its own economy. Inside of this brothel, there are not only rooms for slaves, but shops for cigarettes, foods, and tailors.
As mentioned before, a lack of education as well as poverty are two factors, as well as the lack of respect towards human rights in Bangladesh. It contributes to trafficking as well as social exclusion and gender-based discrimination. Women are also classified as a second-class citizen and are not provided with the same opportunities as men. It is common that women don't receive any formal schooling. About 23% of girls pass grades. The trafficking route that is constantly available is the Dhaka, Mumbai, Karachi, Dubai route. The route is across the border to India. It has not only affected Bangladesh, but also large areas of the South Asian Gulf region, such as India. In 1947, after India's partition, were many enclaves created. Enclaves are areas belonging to a country but is located in another country. Enclaves in both India and Bangladesh were created. These enclaves are constantly used by traffickers as recruitment and collection sites. The enclaves are not being supervised or controlled by law enforcing agencies, which simplify it for the traffickers to use it as
Human trafficking
a route.
goes against several human rights. Everyone is born free and equal, and everyone is entitled to the human rights. Breaking a human right does not entitle you the human rights. Also, slavery and human trade is against Article 4. Article 5 claims that no one should be subjected to torture. Article 7 holds the right of protection from discrimination. Not only does it go against human rights, but also against the national laws of Bangladesh. It's illegal to import, export, sell, and buy any woman with the intention of using that woman in prostitution. There are various non-governmental organizations in Bangladesh working to combat human trafficking in the world. Bangladesh National Women Lawyers Association, Ain Salish Kendro of Dhaka, and UNICEF are a few. Bangladesh National Women Lawyers Association has also become involved in the trafficking problem in Bangladesh. The main issue is the oppression of women, as well as the social structure. A solution would be to pass new laws and entitle women the human rights. The legal system has to follow the laws. Defects exist in the legal system, and that has been shown when only 53 cases has been brought before the court during these 5 years. If the unemployment decreases, people won't be in need to provide through prostitution. Human trafficking has become a global spread around the world, and a solution is to break the connection between the countries where human trafficking occurs. The surrounding world can help by donating to organizations that work against human trafficking, and people in welfare societies can volunteer to help victims and take care of them. Organizations can also collaborate with civilians and governments from different countries to make a bigger impact on the problem.
The abolishment of human trafficking has to commence with the people in the country. Public awareness and the consequences, as well as the perception of women, has to change. Women has to be seen as human beings, because that will lead to more rights and power towards the women, as well as equality. They have to be reinstalled as a part of the society rather than an object. The surrounding world can be helpful by donating money to organizations that work against human trafficking, and people in welfare societies can be volunteers to help victims and take care of them. Organizations can also collaborate with civilians and governments from different countries to make human trafficking more of a global issue so that everybody has knowledge about it and its consequences, for the purpose to inform the world, to make bigger impacts so that human trafficking stops. The measurements takes time to proceed, and a lot of the changes has to be within society and its structures. Values and traditions has to change, as well as a new government that stands up for the human rights.